Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, this show is for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create a life you love or love the life you create. Now, here's your host, Dr. April, and co-host Coach K.
Hi, welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
Good. So happy St. Patty's Day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, I'm going to have to pinch myself. Oh, I don't have my green. I see you have yours on.
Yes. But you always have green because you have the green background.
Oh, there you go. I'm covered in St. Patty's Day today.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So, I was thinking, in these last few years with the pandemic and all of us being home so much, I don't know, has your appetite changed?
My appetite has definitely changed. It has increased, and it has increased for everything that I do not need. And especially, I'd say within the last 14 months, it's really just gotten ridiculous.
Right. I noticed, especially in 2020, when things were happening, you just sat there and eat. Didn't know what else to do.
That's pretty much exactly what happened, especially when your mind is just wheels are spinning. You don't know what you can do, where you can go. Eating was the comfort.
Yes. Yeah. And then as a comfort, even going now that we're in 2022, and I'm not sure about where you're at, but where I'm at, things are opening up.
Mm-hmm. They are slowly but surely opening on up.
Yeah. And so eating for comfort, and now things are opening up, and I'm here in Southwest Florida. So it's like, oh, do I really need to take care of my body? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Yeah.
That has definitely become a struggle. And I'm getting a hold on it now, but I'm still trying to grip it.
Yeah. And I think even for me, and I'm not one who thinks like you need, because that's the kind of the wrong relationship to have with. But I'm still in that process of some sort.
It is definitely going to be, it's a process, because that habit that we call the habit that we formed, it could be 20 years of you having this amazing, healthy habit, great habit, and it can be undone in a matter of 1 year. And then you have to retrain yourself.
Right. And how can I put it? And we talk a lot about intimacy and self, and that relationship with self, it's critical.
It is, especially what we not just, feed ourselves physically, but what we're feeding ourselves mentally as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I'm so excited about today's topic of loving yourself, but also through, not through, but how emotional eating can affect how we love ourselves. Because, some of us think, and I've been there, I'm going to reward myself by eating this. And then I'm going to reward myself by eating this. And I truly love myself because I'm going to eat all of this.
Yeah. Coming from the gym is like, oh, I just came from the gym. I did a good thing. Let me go have chocolate cake. It's like, does that really go together?
Yeah. And I think as we get older, I could love myself and eat 2 Big Macs and nothing would impact me when I was younger. And maybe it did, have some kind of, but now,
that saying, if you appreciate it more, and I know I have since I've hit 40, a moment on the lips is a lifetime on the hips. I appreciate that as saying so much more.
Right, right, right. And it's also even in the sense of now it's not even just sometimes the weight, but just how you feel health wise.
Yes, that sluggish feeling.
Right, right, definitely. So we have a special guest coming on for that. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about our charity of the month, our Mother's Home. Great organization. And Coach K, last week, I was able to actually talk with our Mother's Home. There was a presentation
Nice.
that I did as a keynote speaker, and it was just a wonderful thing. And as I think about our Mother's Home is help teaching young individuals and young moms how to be moms.
Such a needed thing. That support is so necessary.
Right, right. And as I think about it and even think about our topic today, one of the things that I learned from an organization way back when, maybe it was Healthy Kids or whatever, was this was when I was pregnant. I think I was pregnant, or yeah, that they were teaching about how we feed our kids in the beginning impacts how they see food.
That's true.
As they get older, and also that impact of the whole emotional eating and all that. And I didn't really realize that until I went to that workshop, and then also seeing the dynamics in my own family history.
That is absolutely true. And you don't really think about that. You know, we train our children how to either appreciate or not appreciate food.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you remember when I was little, I had to eat everything off my plate.
Everything off
no
the
matter
plate.
what. Who cared who fixed it? Who cared what was on it?
Or if it was good.
Yeah, whether it's good or not good, I had to eat everything off my plate. So it taught a little bit of a good lesson, because I used to hate broccoli, and I used to hate broccoli. And I also just right now still don't even like cheese. But I was at someone's house and they put broccoli and cheese on my plate, and I ate it because I knew my parents would have a cow if I disrespect. Yes. But it also comes where they put a whole lot of stuff on your plate. And even when you're full as a kid, you still have to eat it.
Yeah, that can absolutely create extremely unhealthy eating habits, but also unhealthy emotional connections when it comes to food and family. I was one that I didn't like fish. And at one point we lived in Portsmouth, which was right at, right on the ocean. So we always had fish. And I distinctly remember sitting at the table as a young person. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I refused to eat. And I would sit there till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm just sitting, and I did not eat fish. I didn't start eating fish again until I was in my 30s.
Wow. Yes. Well, that's the same way I feel about grits. I had to eat them every day. And so I don't care how good. And I can smell the shrimp and grits now. And I'm at a new place, or New Orleans or South Carolina, but I will not put it. Yeah. Not that that's a healthy thing, but yes. So it's how
for you.
Yes. It's how we as parents impact and teach people about food, and how that later on relates to our emotions. Yeah. So I'm so excited. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have someone who is an expert to teach us how do we have that relationship with food. And also, what are we showing our kids and how that impacts our relationships. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you wanting a vacation in paradise? A vacation to rekindle the passion? A vacation without the kids? A vacation where you can learn how to communicate, where you and your partner actually hear each other and gain insight? If so, vacation counseling is your next vacation. Dr. April Brown has created vacation counseling in Southwest Florida as a perfect option for you and your partner. Our retreats are one couple at a time. We have a variety of packages available to choose from, including virtual couples retreats. If you and your partner are interested in vacation counseling, please visit us at vacationcounseling.com for more information on pricing and packages. Also, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To keep track of the latest news, stories, activities, or coupons on vacation counseling and Dr. April's other services, we encourage you to sign up to receive a monthly newsletter called Intimate Connections at draprilbrown.com. Remember, if you and your partner are struggling with communication and intimacy, and you all are looking for a retreat to connect, vacation counseling can be your next vacation in Southwest Florida.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. If you're out there and you're listening onto it right now, and if you have questions about eating and emotional eating, please chime in. I'd like to welcome Cassie Christopher. Yes. Welcome to the show, Cassie.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I was loving your intro conversation. I know personally, and so many people can relate to struggling with food the last couple years, especially the last couple months, and that whole idea of things are going well, and now I'm into the emotional eating, and it feels like I'm back to square one. I was just chomping at the bit to get in here and talk about all this with all of you.
Yes. And you're a registered dietitian. Yes.
That's right.
Out in, what state are you located
I'm in Washington. So I live in the Puget Sound, and I spend my days, my relaxing time just staring out at the waves, trying to determine if I'm seeing logs or seals. Or seals, who knows?
And so you're positive, body positive, which is fabulous. And that is wonderful. And you help people talk about it, but also learn how to love themselves.
That's right. You know, something you said that really stood out to me was you said need.
Right.
And you know how when we feel that we need the food, and I sometimes talk about that like primitive, it almost feels primal, like well, we can't say no, you know, Cookie Monster kind of thing. When we need, it really does show that there's an imbalance with our relationship with food. And so the work I do is to help women in particular. I work with women in midlife and beyond to create a supportive relationship with food, their body, their health, so that they can eat with joy instead of eating to seek joy.
Awesome.
I like that.
Thanks, me too.
So we ask all our guests here, because this show is called Bringing Intimacy Back. What does intimacy mean to you, and how does that relate to food?
Yes. Oh, I love that question. You know, I think it goes back to, for me, it's about feeling seen, feeling heard, knowing what my needs are and caring for my needs. And then, you know, intimacy in relationships, being able to communicate my needs and get my needs met. And I think oftentimes with food, you know, I relate again, like I said, I'm chomping at the bit. You were talking about the Big Mac, like using the Big Mac, you thought it was self-love, perhaps.
Right.
In the past. And so, you know, we feel like we're caring well for ourselves. And that was my story too. For me, I was in grad school studying nutrition of all things, right? And going to the school cafeteria every single day, buying, you know, at least once a day, a bar of dark chocolate. And even at that time, my metabolism, wasn't what it was. And I was obviously gained weight because you can't not when you're eating a bar of dark chocolate every single day. I mean, we're talking a whole bar. And for me, that dark chocolate was the way that I was dealing with my emotions. It was the way I was meeting my needs, although it's a hindsight is 2020 situation because I did not know at the time, right?
Right.
Yeah. And what's interesting is looking back, I can see how I was trying to deal with the stress and anxiety, the performance anxiety, my type A personality, you know, tied back to childhood, right? Like all that stuff by eating the chocolate, because it numbed the discomfort of the stress. And so eventually when I numbed, instead of dealing with my feelings and caring for myself and identifying my needs, right? Like having that intimate relationship with myself, food allowed me to escape that But I didn't escape the consequences. I ended up with severe anxiety, some really scary panic attacks, right? Because I wasn't dealing with the emotion. I was using food to numb it and quiet it. So we think it's self-love, but ultimately there's consequences.
And so by kind of masking it, what was actually happened just kind of multiplied out of control in the background.
Yeah, and there's some great research around this, around what happens with emotional repression. And it's so fascinating to me when you look at the list of things that are tied to not dealing with your emotions. And I'm sure these are things you ladies are talking about all the time, right? Is things like fatigue and, you know, even blood sugar imbalance, obesity, thyroid issues. Like really it can be when we're not dealing with our emotions, that stress really, because it's kind of viewed as stress in our body, has to go somewhere, and it kind of turns inward on ourselves. And so but the thing that's frustrating to me, and I wonder, you know, how you two feel about this, is the solution to having any sort of eating struggle is that all or nothing dieting. Where you either do something perfectly, right? You follow it perfectly, the yes foods, the no foods, the tracking, the thises and the thatas, or what's even the point? Restart, try again later. You ate one cookie, I didn't want any cookies, might as well have 5, right? I mean, and we're laughing because that's really what goes through our minds so often. And of course, you know, 1 cookie is probably not a big deal, but 5 cookies, we might start to notice in our bodies that feels uncomfortable. And so that all or nothing dieting, I just want to put out there for anyone who's struggling with eating issues, they often think, I need to get this under control. I need to control my eating. But that's really not the solution. That's what I tried. I mean, that's what I was learning about, right? Becoming a dietitian, learning about all the ways to eat and trying them out and finding that I would do perfectly, right? And felt like I was good. Or I would go to Whole Foods and buy a container of guacamole and eat the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah. So Cassie, I was just thinking, is when you mentioned the cookies, I have a story about that. I was trying to lose weight and even sign up to one of these things, you know, to sign up. And I was at a place and they had all these beautiful cookies. And so I went and grabbed one and it fell on the floor. And so then I went and grabbed another one, fell on the floor. And by the third one, finally, I said, okay, God, I got it. But what that actually taught me, and because I was in a period where I was doing so much that I was eating fast. And so it was the awareness, because I think sometimes with emotional eating, I didn't even know I was emotionally eating, because I would, especially when you work in a school, you're just like, psh. So I wonder, how do you help people become aware of the emotional eating?
I love that. Oh, I love that question, because you're so right. So many people don't even realize they're doing it. So how it typically manifests is feeling like you know exactly what to do. I've literally had clients say to me, I could write my own book, right? Okay. Like, I don't need you, lady. Like, I can write my own book about what to do, but I'm not doing it. And so that's typically how it manifests. And again, because all or nothing dieting tells us, like, if the diet doesn't work, it's your fault. That typically comes with a lot of blame, a lot of shame, a lot of self-criticism. Like, honestly, it gets dark pretty fast in that situation, which again is just so common. And so if you feel like you know what to do, but you can't get yourself to do it, of course, it could be that you're misinformed. But like I'm talking, most of these women I'm talking to, they're doing the sensible stuff. You know, they're not trying to starve themselves or only have one shake a day, right? Like we all realize you're going to be hungry. That's not going to work. And so what's really going on, and it kind of comes out in 2 ways. One is food tastes, or food works better than Xanax. Direct quote.
Can you say that again?
Food works better than Xanax. If you feel like food, you eat it and you feel better. If you notice that in the moment, that's one way that emotional eating can manifest. It's not the only way. And it's not necessarily like you experience that all the time, but maybe you know that you're stressed, or you know it's been a hard day and you think, I need a reward. I'm going to go to Dairy Queen. I'm going to get a Blizzard. And I'm going to get, medium because the small's tiny. Have you seen it?
Right. Cassie, you're calling me out.
Oh,
My emotional eating is a hamburger Happy Meal. That's
Yeah.
and
Oh,
I think it makes the whole world better.
Right. Yes. And there you go. It makes the whole world better. Like you immediately feel better. You feel calmer.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a better therapist and all.
Yeah. Amazing. So that's one way people can recognize. And the thing I want to say about that real quickly is like, thank God that there is a way to feel better in the moment. Like that emotional eating and even in any time of emotional eating is a survival mechanism that allows us to feel better. And especially over the last couple of years, we've needed it. Like everyone has needed that help and support. So, I think we can have a lot of compassion for ourselves when we end up there, because we are trying to care for our needs. Like we do, it is almost a way of loving ourselves. It's just perhaps misguided.
Right. Because it's like you said, it's at the moment.
Yes, in the moment. The second way that emotional eating shows up, and I want to make sure I say this because some people out there are going, everything you're saying I'm tracking with, except I don't think I feel better when I eat, is using food to zone out or escape. So this is Netflix at 8 p.m. with a bag of something.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Am I calling you out again? Right? Like
it feels so good.
It does. And it's so interesting to me. And I hear this all the time, like if I had $1, right? Like people will say, well, it's just a habit. It's just a habit that I need to kick. It has nothing to do with food. It has nothing to do with my emotions. It's just a habit. I'm full at dinner. It's just a habit. And the reality is, so one thing is it could just be you're not getting enough energy during the day. And a lot of people aren't eating a lot during the day. And so their body is sending these signals, even though their stomach might be full, you haven't had enough. So that could be part of it. So I always work to correct that first with people. But the second piece is when you're watching TV, when you're scrolling, for me, I do this, I escape with cozy murder mystery novels. Okay, there's my guilty pleasure. I just told everyone. When you're doing these things and eating is part of that, you're escaping from feeling. You're numbing. It's another way to numb. And so the thing about food, again, is it works. It works so gosh darn well that you may not even know what it is you're numbing. Because that all or nothing dieting as well, it disconnects us from our bodies because we're not listening to our body's cues of when we're hungry or when we're full. We're relying on, apps or meal plans or the scale. And so we lose touch. And research shows, and I hear that you two are really into children and supporting children. And so you might be aware of the research around, and this is kind of a nerdy thing, so maybe you won't, preschoolers. They've done all this great research in preschoolers and their hunger and fullness cues. And you can give preschoolers a big old buffet of all their favorite things, and they'll go in there and they'll eat just about what they need, and then they'll stop eating for the most part, right? And so again, and I heard you two talking about filling the plate, right? Like that's one of those things that can disconnect us. The dieting can disconnect us. And so we no longer are really aware of our own hunger and fullness. And similarly, just in living life, and you're the therapist, Dr. Brown, so maybe you can speak to this better than me, but we become disconnected from our emotions as well. And there you go. Then now we're emotionally eating. So if anyone out there is raising their hand going, yes, this is me. I'm the comfort eater. I'm the, I'm the avoidant eater or the escape eater. You're not alone. There's hope. And that disconnect, what it does is it ultimately causes us to stop trusting ourselves. We don't trust ourselves around food. Right?
Yeah. So you either overeat or undereat, I'm guessing is
that. And then people have anxiety around food. They have fear around food. Like women come to me and they're like, I cannot have XYZ in the house. or they know there's going to be cake, at an event, or cookies, a spread of beautiful cookies at an event, and they're anxious about it. I'm afraid that I'm going to go there and I'm just going to stuff my face with cookies and I'm going to feel embarrassed and I'm going to be mad, right? I don't have self-control, because that's kind of the myth, is that you need the self-control, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so we lose that trust in ourselves. That certainly happened to me. And it was as, a young dietitian early in the field, as I was starting to see what was working for people, I was noticing the dieting wasn't working for me. I, happen chance had started working on dealing with the emotional stuff in my life. And so I realized I was emotional eating. I had to find a way to solve it, and that I was disconnected from myself, that I didn't trust myself. And so through that experience, I developed my courage to trust methodology. And the antidote to the all or nothing dieting is finding the courage to trust yourself again, to trust yourself around food, to trust you can, eat healthily most of the time and mindfully indulge sometimes, to trust that you're worthy of that self-care. That's a big one, huh?
Yes.
That's a big one. And to, just to trust that you can know what your needs are and you can care for them. And so that's the work that I help people do to, reach that supportive relationship with food so they can eat with joy.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm thinking, and I think someone even has a question. And I know that you have a lot of tips, but what is one tip a person can take away on how to trust themselves?
I love that. I love that. So I've got a 4-part methodology. It's to calm your nervous system. And I know you said 1. Don't worry. I'll just come back around to that.
Well, I want people to reach out to you, so I don't want you to give everything away,
Well, that's okay. That's okay. They can understand. The 4-part methodology, the first thing we need to do is calm the nervous system. Anyone else stressed and overwhelmed out there? Right? And that stress and that overwhelm really does lead to more eating and more of that like primal compulsive eating. So when we can calm the nervous system down, you can start to make space and really think about how you're actually feeling and what your needs are. And then the second pillar of this courage to trust methodology is self-compassion. Self-compassion. And what self-compassion does is it allows you to be kind to yourself so that you're not kicking yourself when you're down in your mind for, making the choices you make. And then it allows you to be mindful. It's a tool that you can use to safely notice your feelings and let them move through you and dissipate so that you're not stuck eating them all the time. And then the third piece is to listen to yourself. So that's really undoing the damage from that all or nothing dieting, learning what your hunger cues are, your satiety cues are, listening to what your needs are, asking for help when you need it. And to me, that's what ties into intimacy, like we were talking at the top here. And then the last piece is a lot of the women I work with are concerned about their weight. And while I am body positive and I help them accept where they're at, I also accept them as they are. I also want to meet them where they're at and help them, care for themselves and maintain or lower weight in a way that that's really supportive to their health and not, harmful, like all or nothing dieting. So metabolism boosting is the 4th piece. And so with all of that, my one tip, back to the question at hand, to learn to trust yourself around food is, and this is going to be really practical, it's you need to eat regularly. You need to eat enough and you need to eat regularly. Really, if you do that, it'll be a lot easier to deal with the emotional side of things. Go ahead.
And as simple as that sounds, to so many people, that is a very difficult feat.
Yes,
so just hearing it is helpful.
Well, there's a lot of myths around eating regularly. So here's what I'll say about this. A lot of people say, well, I'm not supposed to eat if I'm not hungry, right? And I work to get my clients to a place where their metabolism is up and running and they're connected to their body and they can eat, when they're hungry and not eat when they're full. But if you've been all or nothing dieting, maybe for decades, and you're struggling with emotional eating and you're not connected to your body, you really need to start with eating regularly. I say about every 4 hours, make sure you're getting some protein or fat to help you stay full. You have to repair the metabolism, and what that does as well is eating regularly instead of skipping meals actually lowers the stress hormone cortisol in the body as well. So again, we're calming things down and just feeling more cared for, more nourished. And that's a great way to start your healing journey.
Helpful tip.
Yes.
Who's hungry?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said, because when you say eating regularly, people may think, well, I eat every 12 hours.
Right.
I'm glad you
Yes.
you put it like 4 hours. Yes.
Right. And and people are often like, well, what about intermittent fasting, or what about all these other things? I'm like, look, if that works for you, and by works for you, I mean, you do it and you can do it forever. It doesn't create a weird relationship with food or your body. Awesome. Do it. But the truth is, and research shows, something like intermittent fasting raises your stress hormone levels. So if you have a lot of stress in your life, or you're not dealing with your emotions and that's causing stress in your body, that's probably not the way to go. And what's interesting to me is I've seen people use those kinds of methods as a way to just avoid food. It's like, I'm just avoiding the problem, which again makes total sense because no one's given you a real solution.
Yeah.
The solution has been restrict, control. And, again, that doesn't work. But when it doesn't work, who gets blamed for it?
Definitely. Yeah. So you have a 12-week stress less method that you utilize with your clients?
Yeah. So the method I'm rebranding. Okay. So everyone out there who wants to look at my website, CassieChristopher.net, soon you will see me talking more about the Courage to Trust method. But right now the program is called the Stressless Weight Mastery. And this is a 14-week group program where I walk people through these steps that I'm talking about to get that supportive relationship with food, so that they can feel good in their bodies, that they're not anxious, about food, that they can stop the nighttime Netflix binges without feeling deprived, and can really move forward more connected, healthier. And many people do lose weight as well.
Yeah. And I just have a quick question because I was just thinking about it because you mentioned Netflix. Does multitasking and eating, how does that impact? Because I think maybe sometimes when we're doing so many things.
Yeah. I mean, great point. Like, again, it might be something that's disconnecting us from our own hunger and fullness.
Okay.
What I think is really interesting, one of the best studied, we'll call it a diet pattern rather than a diet, because I think that's more accurate, is the Mediterranean diet. And, part of the Mediterranean diet, the reason it's so effective to, help with heart disease and diabetes and weight loss and blood pressure, all this stuff, part of it is because there's a lifestyle component where people are often eating their meals in the company of other people. So, on the one hand, I can't say like you can't be doing anything. You need to just stare at the wall while you eat, right? Also, who's going to take that advice? Like, I'll be honest, I'm watching currently this random realtor show on Netflix that's all in French. They're in Paris. I have to watch the subtitles. Like, I have to be very engaged to understand it. Why am I watching it? I don't know. It's compelling. And I'll occasionally do that over lunch, and so I don't want to shame people for eating while they're doing something else. I think it's very normal. But if you can stop what you're doing and check in with yourself, and how's my hunger? How's my fullness? They say, oh, put the fork down and check in is kind of one thing, but just generally trying to have that awareness. And the other piece is, I think it is interesting to do a mindful eating exercise. You can Google these. I do them with my clients, where you eat a meal and maybe you do sit in front of a wall for that one meal just to experiment what it's like. I'm not saying do this for the rest of your life. And you smell the food and you look at the food and what does it look like? What does the food remind you of? Is there feelings of nostalgia coming up, right? Like what's going on with that piece? And then you take a bite and you savor it and you go slow and you think about it and you smell it and you taste it in your mouth and you take another bite and you try to eat your meal that way. It's going to feel really weird. It's going to feel super like foreign. And that's okay. But I believe there's something to learn from that experience.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Wow. And I have one last question that just came in. It's a young lady from Kentucky, and she's asking that she's trying to change her eating habits, but her family is not supportive.
Oh, so hard.
They feel very offended.
Yes.
Because food is a part of culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys can relate. I don't know if Coach K is, but I know that's something I can relate to too. Yeah.
Right. And, even if it's what oftentimes trying to better ourselves, whether it's eat differently or move our bodies more or, whatever it is, like learn to be a public speaker. I don't know, right? Like whatever thing we're going for, it can be intimidating to the people around us, especially if something like food is a point of connection. And people are going like, do you not care about me now? You don't want to connect with me now, right? Like there's a lot to that. And so my advice would be to think through, and if you can have a conversation, if you have a relationship where it's possible to have that conversation and share like, hey, I'm trying to care for myself. I'm not feeling supported. I recognize this isn't a conversation you can have with everyone. They have to be safe, right? But like, I'm not feeling very supported. What are the needs that you have? Like, what's important to you? I want to honor you and love you, and I want you to honor me and love me. Here's what's important to me. Maybe for them, it's like, they want you to try what they make or whatever, right? And you can negotiate, like, I'll try it. And rather than having to eat portion upon portion, like if you can find some middle ground, and honestly, it's probably going to take a hard conversation, setting some boundaries, like identifying the needs you have and sharing them with someone else. Like this is where, the food work turns more into the therapy work. Because food is a big deal, with our relationship with ourselves and other people.
Wow.
That whole scenario, it makes me think when I used to binge watch My 600-Pound Life. I love that show. And when people would, as some of the women would start to lose weight and their husbands or their family members would actually, get upset. Yeah. And it's like, definitely. And I think that's why the doctor usually suggests therapy for a lot of them, because, maybe their weight was a comfort zone for the rest of the family. Like, where as long as you're there, then I must be good where I am. Yes. So it's being able to put your boundaries around you. So it's like you're working this parallel. We're working on a family dynamic fixture along with, a food fixture.
It's all so intertwined. And I remember you too in the intro as well, talking about, emotional eating in families. And I joke, I'm an emotional eater from a young age. My mom tells the story of going to the convenience store when she was like 9 months pregnant with me, waddling in and buying one of those ice cream drumsticks like every day after work. That's how she made it through the third trimester. Like I come by it naturally. And so many people have those stories, or maybe grandma's spaghetti was like the thing that made them feel loved, in maybe an uncertain childhood or something like that. Food has such strong connections for us. And so that's why self-compassion is so important in this process, is recognizing what does the food mean to us? Like, what is it that we're needing? And, moving gently with ourselves through that.
Yes. Wow. Well, thank you so much for being on this show. If anyone's out there listening, how can they connect with you?
Yeah. If you're listening and you're like, help, you can go to CassieChristopher.net/free. I've got my emotional eating roadmap that gives you the steps you need. It's called You're Done Dieting, but still want to heal emotional eating. So it's definitely for those people who know what to do, just can't seem to do it. This is your guide.
Oh, awesome. So, she says, CassieChristopher.net. If you're out there listening, definitely check her out. Thank you so much for being in the show.
Thank you
And we're
so
going to
much.
take a short commercial and we'll be right back.
Awesome.
It's time for the Fools in Love Couples Retreat. Join Coach K for a weekend of sharing, exploring, and learning all about the amazing world of relationships and marriage. You will explore and discuss topics such as communication, intimacy, sex, work-life balance, infidelity, and more. For further information on the Fools in Love Couples Retreat, visit foolsinlove2022.eventbrite.com or info@loveandintimacy101.com.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Wow, that was so amazing what she just talked about.
I loved every drop of it, especially when she was talking about the diet piece. I've always, me and diets don't get along, and I used to just always think in my mind, I just think it would be so much more stressful to try to diet because the thought of dieting is stressful, and so you can't shed weight. So I'm so glad that I have been confirmed in that theory.
Yes. And I'm glad in the sense of when they asked the question about culture, because I know when I had at one point I was much heavier than I am now, and when I changed my lifestyle of eating and no longer eating late night with my parents or just saying no to things, they took it very offensively. Yeah, and they even said, you were nicer when you're fatter, or some kind of comments they make. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I just finished having that discussion with someone, how our culture is so huge on the little jabs from way back. You walk
Right.
into the room, it's like, oh, you haven't missed a meal, or your thighs
Exactly.
getting kind of thick there, and everybody laughs, and it's like, that affects people.
Right, definitely. Yeah, they used to say that to my daughter a lot, and that affect how she saw food. So definitely. So I'm glad she mentioned that. Yes. So what's coming up next?
Super excited about the weeks to come, where we're going to have on next week, March 24th, we have Kaylin Getty, hashtag live, laugh, lube. On
Ooh, yes.
March 31st, we're going to have Roy Biacanalana, and I always mess it up, so I apologize, Roy, in advance, with getting ready for something real. On April the 7th, we have Dr. Renee Wellenstein with Bringing Your Sexy Back. And then rounding out the 4-week mark on April the 14th, Karen Freeland with The Vagina is Not a Dirty Word. Whew, we have some good ones coming up.
Yes. Well, you have a wonderful week. And thank you so much. And this has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back. We hope you enjoyed it. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com and Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. Dr. April Brown's 5-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon, available in Kindle, Audible, or paperback. We'll see you next Thursday live at 3:30 p.m.